Hello and welcome to Simply inTAXicating. Almost close to 100 days of GST implementation, the GST Council, the most powerful federal body, met in New Delhi last Friday. They had a little stormy session because the industry and trades have represented in a big way to various state finance ministers and also union finance minister, and the council took a series of decisions, some of them granting big deal of relief for the small taxpayers, also for the exporters, a little bit of amendment here and there in the GST laws. We have 4 domain experts who are going to take a look at it and find out, because they also have a lot of feedback from various quarters of the economy, and to what extent the GST councils are actually going to produce the kind of tangible relief for the taxpayers, either the exporters in terms of refund or small taxpayers in terms of compliance also, the GST network for instance. What kind of burden, what kind of additional load which is going to be there on the GST network, or the load is going to be less now. But the changes have to be made in the software. So again, the space of time which is required by the GST network to tweak their software, to get themselves fully prepared for welcoming the taxpayers online. All these aspects we are going to look into today. We have 4 domain experts with us. Mr. Sumit Dutt Majumder, former chairman, Central Board of Excise and Customs. Mr. Pratik Jain, national leader, our joint, our knowledge partner also from PwC. We have Mr. Ajay Sahai, the DG, Federation of Indian Export Organizations, and Mr. Singh, Senior VP, GST Network. So let me start with all the guests. Let me request them, because all of them were waiting for this, the kind of protest which of course some of the sectors, some of the textile sector for instance, exporters for instance, they were making noise that GST is not working well. So sir, with the initial comment, then we will go to the specific problem and the solutions which have been provided by the GST network. So what is your initial comment on this? A lot of decisions.
On the basis of the last 3 months experience, it was very clear some urgent course corrections were needed. And I think that to a great extent has been achieved by this decision on the 6th of October. But then we have to see the notifications, which notifications come soon, so there will be no exact implications of, but there are certain gray areas. We'll discuss it later. But then a lot more is to be done, particularly for small business, which I will discuss later. Right. Otherwise, for exporters, yes, the main problem of the blocked working capital, that to a great extent has been taken care of. So it's a very good end, but they'll have to do quite a few more course corrections. That's what my feeling is.
Okay, Pratik, what?
So I would say that when 1st July GST happened, I think focus was more on the event of GST. Now people are focusing more on the journey or the process, which is encouraging. I think nobody says that GST in India is a perfect GST. There are shortcomings, but obviously the view was that let better not be the enemy of good and therefore implement GST. I think 2-3 things Sir has already pointed out. SMEs were struggling to comply with GST and therefore they have got relief. Exporters have got relief, which is good. Some of the provisions where industry had represented, like e-way bill, etc., has been rightly deferred. Of course, many of us believe they should be scrapped altogether. I think the most important aspect for me is that GST Council has shown enough maturity and flexibility to look at the issues, accept that there are shortcomings and take remedial action. Right. I think that augurs well for any reform like this. Over a period of 1 or 2 years, you will see this reform become, or this law, much better, much simple than what it is now.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. So, of course, the entire focus was on exports this time actually. So,
no, in fact, I totally agree that the GST Council has, first of all, demonstrated that they are well aware of the ground realities and they are flexible. And both are very much required when you are attempting a reform of the kind of the GST. For the export sector, we have to keep in mind that this is a sector which cannot carry out the domestic disability in exports. And therefore, while we say that different segment may have been impacted, export was impacted a lot, as we are competing with many countries which have much better turf than what we are having. From that perspective, I think government has looked into some of our immediate concern, that is the refund which was not flowing. They have assured that IGST refund will start from 10th of October. ITC refund from 18th of October. They have agreed with our view that they will be introducing an e-wallet, preferably from 1st of April or little later. And in the meantime, any inputs which is required for export production under various instruments like advanced license, EOU or EPCG will be provided an exemption from GST, both on imports as well as on domestic procurement. To a large extent, they have addressed the problem of the merchant exporter also. The supply to merchant exporter will now be subject to 0.1% GST, which is very nominal. They have also looked into how they can address the declining premium on the MEIS, SEIS. For that, they have reduced the transfer rate from 5% to 0%, but definitely we have to look into a larger import basket for utilization of these scripts. So they have done, I think, a wonderful job. To a large extent, they have addressed the problem, but we have some other issues also, which I think they will look into.
Correct, sir. We will discuss also that, sir. So, Mr. Singh, yeah, how do you look at it? Of course, I mean, lots of changes. It's augur whales for you, or it means a lot of additional work for you?
Please see, I mean, this is a reality that the GST that we are implementing is a innovative design and the legal mechanisms are evolving. So that is a reality which everyone has to accept, and Council has done a good thing that it has reduced the compliance burden on the small and medium enterprises by reducing the number of returns that they have to file. This will require the customization of the software, but I think enough time is there, and that will be done, and we are already doing many things. But certain things have been deferred, keeping in mind the readiness of the ecosystem, like TCS and TDS provisions, and that is also a welcome step, because it is a very complex mechanism that we are trying to implement. Now the biggest challenge, I think, for the whole ecosystem is successful filing of GSTR 2. Because it is a concept which is not there anywhere in the world, and successful this filing of GSTR 2, which involves verification of the credit by the taxpayers and their claim in GSTR 2, will pave the way for the more improvement in the system.
Absolutely. So you are ready with this?
We are ready with this GSTR 2, and GSTR 2 has been, the software online version has been released yesterday night.
Okay.
And the offline will come on the in a couple of days, and then people from 10th onwards, people will have to file the GSTR 2. They will want till 10th people have to file GSTR 1. After that, from 11th to 31st, only GSTR 2 filing will be allowed.
Okay.
So people, I mean, there is another aspect. If they have not uploaded their invoices in their GSTR 1, they should ask their counterparties to upload the invoices when this GSTR 2 is filed. Another thing is that if during this period they will be not allowed to file GSTR 1 of July.
Okay.
And if they have not filed, they can file only after 31st. So in the next 2 days, they should file GSTR 1 to the extent possible. And the August GSTR 1, people can save data, but they cannot file.
Okay.
Until it will be notified after the filing of GSTR 3 of July. That is after 11 November, people will be able to file GSTR 1 of August.
So Pratik, do you see any issue here in the industry and trade perspective?
No, I think GSTN system per se for last 1 or 2 weeks is much better than what it was.
Yeah, it has improved a lot, yes.
But obviously the real details, as he's saying, will start from GSTR 2. GSTR 2 assumes that all the players in the system are aligned. So I have filed the returns, purchaser has looked at it, he has, and if there are any reconciliation items, the purchaser and seller respectively are able to react quickly to that. I don't think it will be easy. Okay, let's see. The experience of GSTR suggests that GSTR 1 suggests that GSTR 2 perhaps is much more complicated. I just do hope that if at all there are issues, and we would hope that GSTR 2 will not have issues, but if at all there are issues, then there is a timely action by the government, by the GSTN to address those issues and defer it further if it is required. Like we have deferred it now for all the months. If at all GSTR 2 is not working properly, then you should defer it very quickly. So I think we will learn from mistakes, but we are looking at it with more optimism than what it was earlier.
Do you think that if it doesn't work, let's say that, we have to look at the other side of the coin also. It works fine and well. All of us are very proud of GST network. It's a new experiment, as you rightly said, but it doesn't work. Can there be a solution like this, that instead of the individual invoices being matched, why not to have a consolidated invoice, just one invoice against just one party? I have made 100 purchases from one party, so just one invoice, and which could be uploaded, and that could be easily matched. Perhaps there's a burden on this matching software also. I mean, something like that. The problem.
But there is a problem because 100 invoices that you're talking about may have products of different rates.
Yes.
May have products of different states. On some there could be CGST, IGST, there could be IGST, etc. So I don't think that a consolidation at a vendor level is a solution. Either you can look at deferring this and stabilizing this for 6 months and continuing with 3B,
3B,
or
okay.
deferring the matching concept for let's say a year. That earlier there
Till
was
the
no matching
time
concept.
we are ready. Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, I would like to just endorse what Pratik said. See, the basic business processes are registration, payment, filing of returns. Matching of invoices, I would put it, these are secondary business processes.
Correct.
Right now, till the time the GSTN is fully operational, with all the glitches over, then we should defer it, this matching thing to start with.
Right.
You cannot expect, and sometimes you have to take a practical step. You cannot expect that all the people who are in the unorganized sector should come in the organized sector in one go. You can't expect that everything, there will be no leakage of revenue. Definitely there is a bias intention ultimately.
Right.
But immediately, unless the GSTN is operational, the basic functions are smoothly done. Till that time, we may not go
Let's
for
not
the
mess up
secondary.
with the system.
That's what that's why I
Right.
say what Pratik said is absolutely correct. That defer it till the time that they feel confident that everything is all right. Taxpayers feel.
Yeah, you wanted to add something?
I think we should be optimistic. We have done a lot of preparation. We are providing an offline tool in which people can export the data after downloading to an Excel sheet, and then add these, put these comments of acceptance, rejection, and modification, and modify, and keep it pending for the next, roll it over to the next tax period. So, and similarly, they can then import this Excel into the offline tool, generate a JSON file and upload it. So, we have done a lot of preparation to facilitate this process to a further taxpayer. GSPs have already been on their agreement has been entered with more than I think 50-60 GSPs, and some of the GSPs are very active. They are facilitating, so we can be very hopeful that this system will roll out smoothly, because already a lot of preparation has gone into during the past 3 months. We have learned, the people in the ecosystem have learned, so we can be very hopeful.
Yeah, definitely we should be hopeful. But
We are
at the
hopeful,
same time,
yes.
we should be prepared if it doesn't happen. That's what we are saying.
And this particular thing has
The problems will be there. People should be cautious while giving this acceptance rejection, because once you upload it, then you again download and make changes. That puts undue pressure on the system. So they should make, when they are uploading, they should verify it in the Excel and then upload their responses.
So
which
in
are
particular in Excel itself, because Excel is a very complicated software. So it's a particular DD, YY, whatever that format is.
on a date format, they have to be cautious regarding the date format, which has to be entered in the Excel. That is DD, YY, that is 01 April, then 2017. If you don't put a correct date format, then the tool also rejects, and if you
so there would be a lot of
upload it on the
rejections
system,
there.
then
Yes.
rejects. Because many big players, what they are doing is they are directly not making use of our Excel, but directly preparing the JSON from their software.
Right.
So sometimes they ignore these validations, and then the
Validations
system
yes.
throws an error.
Correct. So, sir, we will go back to exports, because exports was the one which created the maximum din and which was rightly heard by the GST Council. So, sir, this e-wallet system, how exactly, in layman's term, for a common exporter in the economy, in some remote corner, if he wants to understand this, how exactly the e-wallet is going to work?
Let me just give a little background of e-wallet. The liquidity is a key concern for the export sector.
Correct, sir.
What we told the government, that the cost of borrowing a fund for the industry is much higher as compared to the government. So if you collect the tax from me first, okay, you could raise that at much lower level as compared to the exporters who are
Right.
paying the taxes. So in the e-wallet, we have proposed that based on the preceding year turnover of the company, you put something known as virtual currency in his account, which can be used for payment of GST or IGST. And when exports takes place, the refund mechanism decide how much is the refund due, which is adjusted with that. I'll just give an example. Assuming my export in the preceding year was 1 crore, assuming a GST rate of 18%, 18 lakhs will be credited to my account.
Right.
I'm importing something on which I have to pay IGST. I pay IGST of 5 lakhs. The amount, my account will be deducted
Deducted.
for the balance will be 13
lakhs will remain there.
When I exports, based on the exports, whatever refund is due to me will come as a credit to that. The beauty of the virtual system is that money will not go out of the GSTN system. I'm paying to a supplier.
Right.
All right. Supplier may pay to his supplier. It keeps on moving in that way.
Right.
For imports, it's relatively easier because on imports, the liability on the reverse charge mechanism.
Right.
What we have proposed that on the domestic procurement, GST Council can place a supply under the reverse charge mechanism.
Right.
So that instead of supplier taking the liability comes to the exporters.
Right.
So this is a system what we have proposed. I personally feel that government will look into also how the new system of exemption through various instruments will function, how this problem of the merchant exporter will be addressed. Because if both these issues were effectively addressed, there may be a decision not to bring the electronic wallet. Because I personally feel in the electronic wallet, the only advantage is that those who are not going through the export promotion instrument, they will also get covered.
Right.
Otherwise, we are asking them to necessarily go for these instruments.
Okay. So, Pratik, do you see anything, here?
I think my first reaction is looks too good to be true, frankly. I mean, we'll have to see how it.
Okay.
And I will also have to see whether there is any experience internationally of this kind of system. I'm not aware of this. How will that virtual currency work? If I get this 18 lakh as you're saying and my actual entitlement was 10 lakh, does it mean that I'll have to pay interest because I've used it more?
Yet, like,
for example?
yes.
So how will the exact mechanism work? And while for imports it's easier, but for domestic purchases, if the government has to now do this in a reverse charge, then it will also have certain complications because the same exporter, he was buying something, might sell something domestically, might export part of it. So does it mean that the vendor who's charging the tax will have to split his invoices and say this is under RCM and therefore I will not charge tax, this is the domestic supply, therefore I will charge tax, will I take a declaration from the purchaser? So I think this is, as you think through this mechanism, it looks very attractive, I mean very novel, but it also looks a lot of, that it will be complicated, so we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully the government will not have to go to this kind of mechanism, everything else moves fast. So looks good, but I think the devil will be in details and we'll have to see that.
So how do you look at it, sir? You have been the customs man.
One thing is very clear, that the GST Council has taken cognizance of the fact that tax cannot be exported and that the working capital of the exporters cannot be blocked. So that is a basic principle and that's how the exports survive. So that has been taken, all the steps they have been taking. So let's see how the e-wallet works. This is only one part. There are other things also there. The refunds also say that they will expedite whatever is to be done. So long as the working capitals of exporters are not blocked, because that is, as it is, the exporters, I mean, I can see that they are having a tough competition from others. So their competitive edge should not be broken by putting the extra burden of GST.
No, but what Pratik is suggesting, sir, that under RCM, in fact, this issue will crop up, sir, from the supplier side. If the same manufacturer, the exporter, is also selling in the DTA market.
I fail to understand. For supplier, the exporter is paying him. It's on the reverse charge mechanism. Liability will
So
come
he's
to
paying
me.
him the basic price. So let's say if I'm a supplier to another company,
Absolutely.
I am supplying 100 units to the other company. Out of that, 50 units is exporting.
No, sir. Let me just explain. What I am saying that you are supplying to me, I will clear it on the reverse charge mechanism. So I'm making payment of that from my e-wallet. For you, it is the material whether I'm exporting or I'm making a domestic sale.
So will I have to pay tax on my invoice or not? So if I have to raise an invoice,
No, you have to pay tax. I will pay you from my account. On the reverse charge mechanism, the liability to pay tax will shift from you to me. It's like you are taking right now for an unregistered dealer. What you are doing? You are paying the tax.
Correct.
Exporter will pay the tax from his e-wallet. Now, whether he exports or domestically supply the material, based on his export entitlement, how much is refund he is entitled to, it will be adjusted.
So as a supplier,
Yeah.
so long as the exporter says that, look, I am going to export this 100 units, I will raise an invoice without charging any tax. He will have to pay tax under.
Yes.
But then it will lead to those issues that on what basis the supplier will decide that whether I have to charge tax or not. Because exporter,
So, how you decide when you take the supply from an unregistered person?
that I'm talking from a supplier's perspective, sir, not from the purchaser's perspective.
Okay.
Because for exporter, there is no separate GSTN registration.
Yes.
Right? You have one GSTN registration in one state.
Yeah.
A part of the material that I'm buying, I may be using for a domestic market. Part of the material I might be exporting. Now,
I'm saying that all this problem has to be dealt at the exporter's end. For a supplier, it's a normal transactions
Where I will not charge tax.
You will not charge the tax.
let's see how it
And
is.
that could be based on probably the GSTN registration number, the unique number like
Unique
composition.
number they don't have.
They don't have exporters.
So probably they will have to create a new system or something like
Let's
that.
see.
For SEZ, the flag is being.
That's right.
Yes, so ACZ they have done a separate.
The same problem will come for the merchant exporter. You
Yes.
have to create a flag.
Exactly.
Who will be a merchant
So,
exporter?
I mean, all of this will,
That
all
has
of this
to be,
will
yes.
entail a significant changes in
Yes,
GSTN.
yes.
and
The
that-
solution has to be found at the GST network level, sir. Yes.
But one thing, a common thing which I would like to say is, when people evolve policies or laws, since it is a new law already, many things are new. So we should postpone some
Absolutely.
great innovations,
Yeah.
which may come at a later point of time.
No, that's
Maybe
why.
after
That's why I
the-
said that if this exemption mechanism works properly,
Right.
and the supply, the main problem is two. One is when you are importing or procuring inputs for export purpose, and second is the merchant exporter.
Merchant exporter.
So if the two changes which have been brought about, either under the advanced license or 0.1%, if they work finally, I think there may be no need to bring the EVO.
Go for the eval.
Absolutely.
In any
Yes.
case, GSTN should be given enough time
Yeah,
for this.
That goes without
Already
saying.
the
Yes.
done the
the
That
system
goes
that
without
we are
saying.
implementing is itself with a very
There
big
was a
innovation.
mention though in the council meeting, I think by the revenue secretary, that there will be a software company which will be engaged to develop
Yes.
this.
Yes. The new technology. Finance minister also
Yeah.
said that.
I think they have started the discussion on this issue, though of course it will be introduced after. That's a very good sign. Today
Yes.
also they are having some meeting on
Yes, the finance minister said that, sir. But sir, you tell me, sir, what is the quantum of fund stuck for the exporters, the refund due to the exporters?
Let me tell you, there are difference on this matter.
Okay.
What we have projected that if the exporters are not provided refund till the month of October, the total tax amount will be around 65,000 crore, which include the services
Pre-GST.
also. This includes the services
Oh,
also.
okay.
What press release has come from the Ministry of Finance talks about only the refund for the month of July, and that too of merchandise only.
Okay.
Keep in mind that many of the exporters have sufficient input tax credit for the month of July. Okay, but the same figure will not be for August or thereafter.
Right.
What we have done that we have looked into how much is the country's export, excluded SCZ exports and petroleum export from that, and based on a general GST rate of 12%, we have made the projection, because on some their rate is 28%, on
Right.
some 18%, but we have put this projection on 12%, and that's explained our figure.
So this number is for the month of October. So
It is if the refund doesn't come for the month of July, August, September, and October
4 months.
for 4
Okay.
months.
Okay. So this is 4 months refund figure.
So if you see the first 2 months collection, it is around 95,000 crore.
Correct.
If you assume the same collection, let's say 19 to 4,
Correct.
uh,
360.
360 crores.
Right.
Out of 360 crores, 65 crores will have to be refunded.
Gone. Yeah. Correct.
That's good, maybe.
So that has to be refunded. Yes. And that is going to be done as per Revenue Secretary stated within 1 or 2 months.
Yeah,
1 or
for
2
the month
months.
of July, I think
That
it's
July and August they are right now talking about, because
Yes.
September they have no one has paid. so far.
Nobody has paid, so there is no figure. Yes. Yes, sir. Let's go back to this. The huge number of taxpayers we have in the SME side and traders, for instance, and good number of them opting for composition scheme. In fact, not very good number. I mean, I'm getting the impression from the Finance Minister, Revenue Secretary's statement that the government was expecting much higher number. You know, the number of traders and others joining the composition scheme, and that is why once again this ministerial panel which has been set up, they are trying to make it more attractive. So maybe, sir, you are the right person to comment on
I
this.
will say, put it like this. You see, composition scheme has the flip side also. See, if one goes in composition scheme, then he doesn't get the credit. He doesn't get the credit. Whereas the idea of GST is that there should be seamless flow of credit, and so that all the unorganized sector also comes into the organized sector. Now, here what will happen, many people who would like to have the scheme of credit, so they are not going for composition. Even if you increase, they will never go. And rather, they would like to be in the chain of flow of goods or services. This is one. Secondly, the one clause is there that the interstate sales they will not be covered. Now, you see, today, in today's world, you can't think of that only within the state you will do. There will be a lot of interstate sales. So that's why also now that this has, I think it is being referred to a group.
It's a group of ministers.
Group of ministers.
Yes, sir.
So this positive thing has to come soon. Otherwise, just increasing the thing will not help. And when I am talking about the interstate sales, I will also have to mention about the small business. Now, again, small business, one corrective step has been taken that the reverse charge mechanism, that will not be applicable.
Unregistered.
Unregistered, small
Right,
business,
sir.
unregistered, yeah, less than 20 lakh. Because you see, all the international practices that I have read, there's nowhere that you give a threshold exemption in the right hand and you withdraw it by the left hand by clauses like
Right.
if there is interstate sales, then you will not get it.
Yes.
And then then there is another clause that reverse charge that means less than 20 lakhs you are taking that they are outside the net. Again, this which
Correct.
I mentioned at the beginning, that you can't bring the entire organized sector, unorganized sector into the organized sector. It has to be step by step. First step was the demonetization. A big chunk has come, hopefully.
Right.
And the second is this GST. Automatically, because the desire to be in the credit chain, most of people will come back because after all B2B transaction, there is only value added tax. This is the charm of GST. So why put this interstate sales restriction? Now it goes against the principle of one nation, one tax. Because now if a trader or a manufacturer in say Narayana Mayapuri, he will not supply goods to Gurgaon or to Noida, so his business will shrink. So this has to go. I mean, but there is no talk about it. It is good that services they have done. Services they have said that interstate sales will not cause, make them ineligible for exemption.
Right.
Well, as it is, we must realize one thing. The exemption, threshold exemption in India is the lowest that I have seen. With all the countries that we know, they have the threshold exemption in the range of 80 lakhs to 1 crore, equivalent.
Right.
Even Malaysia, our neighbor across the Bay of Bengal, they have equivalent to 86 lakhs. So here you are doing 20 lakhs, there is only fewer left. Now that also you don't want to exempt them. That in one go it is not possible. That's why the pain of the small business. That's why I've seen in Coimbatore, in Vadodara, I have been going there giving lectures and all, and I've seen that people are saying that they've closed down, and you must have also read in the newspaper. So, and other important thing is that small business, they contribute. I have checked up with some economists who have said that there is no written estimate, there are written figure, but the estimated figure is that about 60 to 65% to the employment generation. So if you hit at the small business, take any decision on then your employment will get hurt. Your employment gets hurt means your purchasing power will go down, your GDP will go down. So this is small business is not important from revenue point of
But
view.
does it also impact, sir, the political fortune of a government?
I don't know. I don't know politics. I'm talking about economics.
Right. Right.
So this is the thing. And then again, I am totally with Pratik when he mentioned earlier, e-way bill should be scrapped. There was a need for it when the two states had different rates of VAT. Now all the states are having same rate. And suppose you have to check the evasion, for that you have a solid. Now what will the field officers do now? Field officers have to do only audit and anti-evasion. There is no other work. Assessment, they have no role. Audit and anti-evasion. So have strengthened them, and wherever they get their by the risk management or whatever, let them check the truck. But not as a routine that anybody can go and check this thing. And it will put an extra burden on your GST net also. And many places, it should be, now it has been deferred, but I would say that it should be scrapped.
No, yeah, Pratik. I mean, in fact, this group of ministers, what all the group of ministers is actually going to do and recommend?
I think, if I heard it right, there were a couple of things. One was on restaurants, that there is a feeling that non-AC restaurants should also be at 12%, or AC restaurants should also be at 12%. But I think it's a good idea. And I don't think any other country of the world, you have a distinction in tax rate depending on whether the restaurant has an AC or not.
Yes, yes.
And all these things lead to a situation where, at the time of audit, I'll quickly remove the AC and all of those things.
Right,
I don't
correct.
want to get into it. But I am a little curious to understand, there's one statement which Finance Minister made that if 12% is given, then ITC perhaps is not given. So I don't understand that. And there was a thing that why this was done, because ultimately the price to the benefit is not coming to the consumer.
Correct.
For that you already have an anti-profiteering provision in the law.
Right.
So either we are not confident that anti-profiteering provision will be followed in true letter and spirit, or we will be able to enforce it, or we are again trying to do this differentiation between input credit and non-input credit. All of these things again leads to GSTN complication. Then we'll have to make a distinction if a restaurant opts for 12%, deny the input credit and all of those things. So I do hope that there is a reasonable view which is taken. And to my mind, the reasonable view would be to make one common rate for AC and non-AC with full input credit. So that's one thing. The second thing I think the Group Minister is going to look at is the composition scheme and whether you can broaden it to include interstate sales and things like that. I think these are the two basic things which I could gather.
Even the exempted part they talked about. That
exempted part, yes. That's important also, to say that composition dealers, even those who earn, let's say, interest in fixed deposit. Now, this is again a very sort of controversial position, that whether interest on FD should be treated as an exempt income or not. For the purpose of GST, but the way it seemed that they want to treat that. So they've clarified that even if you earn an exempt income, that will be excluded from this turnover for the composition, which I think is good.
Yes. So I mean, on this note, sir, I think let me thank my guest and for making the decisions of the GST Council little more clearer. A lot of things, how exactly the e-wallet is going to work and whether it is really going to be required or not, because depending on a couple of decisions, how it works out, what it actually transpires at the ground level when the exporters get the actual tangible relief, and as rightly suggested that the turnover, the hike which has been for the composition and even for the small taxpayers up to 1.5 crore, this will amount to a certain amount of relief for small taxpayers in terms of compliance, the quarterly return, and more importantly, the point is that the small taxpayers will have the liberty and the privilege to pay taxes only on a quarterly basis along with the quarterly return. So that basically means that they will have more money with them, which will not adversely impact their working capital, and they can carry on with their business and they have to pay taxes. So it's a mega relief which has come from the GST Council. And the exporter side, of course, we have moved back to pre-GST era, where our exports was getting all the incentive, all the supports, and the working capital, the freedom which they had earlier. Somehow the GST had hijacked that, so it has gone back to them, and hopefully some solution is being worked out. Let's hope that the exports is the one which recovers fast. In the month of August, the 2-digit growth was achieved after many months. So India badly needs to do that to manage our CAD. And as rightly suggested, that how exactly, as Pratik suggested, that this is going to work, we have to look into this. But the GST Council has done a fabulous job, and it will continue to do that. And that trust the taxpayers have in the GST Council's ability to come up fast with solutions if any problem is brought to their notice. So that itself is going to provide that comforting cushion to the reform which is being implemented in India. And as our Prime Minister rightly said that the GST Council decisions have literally advanced the Diwali mood for the taxpayers. So happy Diwali to all of you, for all TIOL TUBE viewers, and once again thank you for all my guests.